Anyway, sorry about that. The problems with Zoom. So I was muted and I was talking, and I don't think anybody actually heard me. So I'll start again. Dr. Thomas Tego is a neuroscientist and he's a science communicator and co-founder of GH Scientific. And he holds a PhD in physiology, and his current research focus is on learning. It's on learning and memory, which he does at the University of Ghana. He has multiple publications in peer-reviewed journals and has presented his work at both the local, national, international conferences. And he's also had his work featured on international news outlets such as the Daily Graphic, Star FM, the BBC, and CNN. So Dr. Tego sits on the Africa Regional Committee of the International Brain Research Organization, and he's helped steer contributions to neuroscience in Africa. He's also the regional president of the Ghana Science Association and the chair of the Ghana Young Academy. He has a strong passion for collaborations and is responsible for implementing multiple public engagement projects, which earned him the British Council Social Impact Award in 2018. The latest of such projects was the Evolution of Science art exhibition that was hosted at the Museum of Science and Technology. He also co-produces the Horizon on Star FM, which is a science-based conversation every Wednesday on Morning Read. He has spent many years in academia and is a keen advocate of learning through practical education, a passion he lives out by organizing and participating in a number of capacity building, learning, and training events aimed at both students and teachers. He has consulted for many education-focused organizations, including Lead for Ghana, and facilitated a number of science communication workshops for Danida, Michigan State University, and other organizations. So we are really grateful to have him this afternoon to take us through the intro to science communication. So I'm prepared to learn a lot of stuff, so I'm sure you are all ready to learn as well. So let's invite Dr. Tego to take over from here. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much, Cyril. And thank you for this opportunity to just come and share with the those who have sort of signed up to be part of this. So the aim of what I want to do for the next 20, 30 minutes I'm going to be talking to you is I want to sell you a vision of what science communication looks like and could look like doing it, wherever you may find yourself, in Ghana, in Nigeria, mostly African country oriented. But because a lot of the work we do is in Ghana, of course, I'm going to really give you examples from the work that we are doing in Ghana. All right, so as already said, I am at the University of Ghana. I co-found GH Scientific, which is an organization focused on building capacity in the science spaces through public engagement and outreach activities. So for our time together, we're going to really talk about four things. First, we're going to look at science communication from a global angle, right? And then at a more local or national angle. Then talk about, why we should do science communication, and then really give you ideas about how you can also get started in it. Then, of course, fuel prices are up, data costs are up, everything is expensive, right? So somewhere along the line, we'll have to talk about careers in science communication and money, really. So I'll try and give you some ideas about what that looks like. Is it a financially viable career you should even consider going into the future? And after that, we'll break up and take questions if there's anything you want to know or any thoughts you want to share. So Emmanuel did a great job telling you about science communication. Of the many definitions, I found this was also a very simple one. It's an umbrella term for all the practices involved in informing and inspiring the public about scientific knowledge. It's really see The picture here, this young boy engaging with this small science, right? And having that wow factor is great because then people will remember that it's something that will stay with him even as he grows. So it's about that, getting people to appreciate the science and be even a little bit more curious about it. Okay. So what does science communication look like globally across the world? It takes a lot of different forms, right? So online activities, public engagement, in the sense that taking the science out of the universities or schools and taking it to the public, places where people who don't necessarily do science can then come and engage with it. It can also just be blogging, right? Doing videos, YouTube videos, TikTok channels, science fairs, science festivals, right? Part of even practical experiments, educational museums are a big thing in the global world. So there are all these many activities. The point is, take science to people. Whatever avenue you have available to you, whatever options, whatever media platform, it can take an array of these things. But that's globally. Clearly, we don't have a lot of the same access to resources. We don't have the same systems. We don't have the same level of just engagement as people do globally. So what I'm going to do for the next 5 slides or so is give you clear examples of what we have done in Ghana over the last 7 years or so that you can see what is possible. Now, I'm going to give you a bit of a backdrop, which is to say, when I say we, I mean Geoscientific, but a large part of the work is driven by about 4 to 5 people with a different group of volunteers that cycle in and out and take part in various number of activities. But the core work that has driven what we've done over like the last 7 years or so is about 4 to 5 people. So bear that in mind as we go through some of this work that we've been doing. Okay, so we've done some work at the primary school level. In one case where we put on regular outreach days, you know, we put together a series of activities and then arrange with maybe a local library or a local orphanage or something, and then just go there and spend a few hours with them doing various science things and then just having fun with science, right? So those are like outreach days, okay? Then we also had this thing that we call a science book tour, where, you know, when you always think of science, people think of textbooks, right? But there are a lot of books out there that aren't necessarily textbooks, where they can just inspire young people when they read about it. So we had some of these books donated, and we took around a number of schools, and the idea was on a termly basis, we can then just come back and be like, okay, so we gave you these books. What did you read in them? What did you see in them? All right, let's do some of the things that, you know, you saw in the books, right? And we did that across 2 different regions in Ghana. That's at the primary level. And earlier on, when Emmanuel was speaking, he said something about, right, audience, right? It's very important that what you do should really be focused at the audience, not necessarily what you are interested in, but what you think the audience will be interested in. So hopefully, as you stay on this course, you'll learn a bit more about the how to differentiate that sort of thinking. Okay. So from primary level, of course, we move up to the JHS level. And the JHS level, you know, another 2 projects I'm showing. One, we actually collaborated with an organization called We Go Innovate. And that's what's shown on here on the left, the Juniors project, where we had 100 schools all across the country, right? It took about a year and a half to film them, doing various science experiments and, you know, demonstrating it and talking about it and how it's related to real life. And the editorial team was just brilliant with this. They put these videos together so nicely, and it was shown on TV. And thankfully, this was in the early phases of COVID. So it became very good educational content. And a lot of these videos are still online. So if you just type in Juniors, so that's this Juniors up here, right? or you just type in WeGo Innovate, and you'll see these videos, and you can even try some of these out yourselves, as some of you may be thinking of ways to do science communication. And a lot of these practicals are very simple, but they communicate, fundamental scientific principles. Then we also did this SHAPE project on the right-hand side, where SHAPE was an acronym for Shaping Healthy Attitudes and Protecting the Environment. And actually, that was one of our first large-scale projects that we did. As you can see, it was 16 schools, and the idea was very simple. Identify a health challenge in your community, which is linked to some environmental challenges. And then how do you think you can solve it? And they had about 6 months to try and innovate this thing. And Felix had a closing ceremony with, heads to schools, GS directors, great. The kids loved it. Some of these students was back in 2016, thereabout. So that's that. Junior high school, you'd notice that now these activities were being a little bit more hands-on and a little bit more experiential, not just demonstrating things to them, giving them the chance to experience as well. Okay, now continuing that experience approach to senior high school, where really all the activities we've done for students at the senior high school is about getting them to experience science. If you consider that a lot of us go through school just reading the books, pass the exams, but not really appreciating the practical components of the science. Of course, when you get to uni, depending on what course you are enrolled on, you have more practical hands-on work. So this senior high school approach was really to try and give them the experience of what different careers in the sciences look like. And you can see like using pipettes, scales, microscopes. Here's an anatomy department where they could just see sort of like skeletal frameworks, how muscles are connected. Some of them even got a chance to go to the medical school morgue and actually see a human cadaver. And it's strange, but for a science student at senior high school, some of them, when they saw a cadaver, they're just like, wow. And you think, is it normal for people to be so excited that this is the first time I've seen a dead body? But at least with this, they can know for themselves that, oh, do I want to actually really go study medicine? Because if after you had this experience, it didn't sit well with you, then you probably shouldn't go and study medicine, right? So it's about that, right? Getting them to experience science. And this was another approach that we took. Then you come and think about, well, how about people who are not in the school system? What do you do for them if you want to do science communication? Well, I'm glad you asked. So we've done some exhibitions. So you see the one I was talking about. This, for those of you who are in Accra, in Ghana, this is the Junction Mall or car park. We just set up a stand there during one of their fairs where people come and sell things. And we just set up a stand and we had people come and just do science experiments and ask various questions, just engage with them. We've also set up public forums where you just open up the space and you invite various people to come and have conversations around science, have a discourse, a discussion, answer some questions, tell them about some things so that they can actually engage with scientists, really. Then for the people who are also within the scientific community, we've had a number of sort of like informal conferences where come and then let's just network, right? Let's share ideas, let's brainstorm. How can we reach more people and connect with them with science? Then a number of competitions as well, writing competitions, video competitions, these sort of being done online. And lastly, the art exhibition, right? So I'll show you a little bit more about the art exhibition later on. Of all the projects I've mentioned to you, that whole project was probably our most expensive project. So science communication can go from it doesn't cost you any money, free, online, social media sort of things, to costing you a lot of money where you just have multiple people involved in the project over a number of years. Okay, so I'll tell you a bit more about that at the end. Okay, so in all of this, what has been the sort of underlying thing that I want you to think about? People. So I mentioned to you that there are about 5 core members of the team, and then just an array of volunteers that come and go. And for all of them, it's been great for them to do something. And some of these projects can be very simple. So for example, the one on the left, we had a number of researchers just come together and go on the streets. And the same way, if you have days in church where they say we're going for evangelism, that you just go and hit the streets and talk to people about Christ. Same thing we did here. We just hit the streets and talk to people about sanitation and the environment and, you know, recycling. And it was just great. If you do this as an individual, it's a little bit tricky. You'll probably feel out of place, right? But if you go about 5 or 10 people, 20 people together, you wear some branded shirts, okay? You go around in pairs. It'll actually be something nice. You find a theme and then just hit the streets and talk to people about it, you know, without any real structures to it. And you can see in this picture here, this is something we did at the Accra Mall, right? So some may recognize the building in the back there. Where once again, we just set up and did some demonstrations. And yeah, Mr. Popo, Mr. Policeman himself was also interested in what we're doing. And that's the thing, right? If you can fascinate people about science, they can get wow about it. Everyone, regardless of profession, has that thing in them that just draws them to understanding the human body more, understanding our environment more, things that they may not necessarily see on a regular basis, right? They will get drawn to it. And this is just some pictures from the art exhibition. So we had some music there. Like I said, we did at the Museum of Science and Technology. Their launch night, had musicians perform, had an artist paint on site. So he did a large scale painting on site about something to do with cholera. And it was great. There were a lot of people who attended that. And the exhibition was on for a few weeks. And then after that, we even moved it online and did a 3D version, which I will show you shortly. Oh, yeah, here's a 3D rendition. So this will show you what it looks like when all the pieces that were in this art exhibition, because remember this was COVID time, got put online. And this is just a part of it. The full thing looks a little bit different. And I might share the link later on in the chat. But it's called the Evolution of Science Art Exhibition. And you see it has all these pictures in there about people who work in the nursing field and how that field has changed over time. Having artificial eyes put in for those who may have lost an eye. And those models or plugins are being made here in Ghana. You know, it's a nurse who just naturally makes them. There's some pictures of operating space. So this was done by a photo journalist known as Kobe Blade. These nursing photographs that he had done. And there were many other pictures in there and stories about, you know, the yellow fever vaccine, cocoa shoot disease, you know, a lot of the malaria research we've done in the country, just, you know, images that will really get you to appreciate what Ghana has achieved scientifically. And that's just a tip of the iceberg, right? Okay. Something else we've also done, and this is now coming to far more easier things, right? Just social media campaigns. Yeah. One campaign that we ran for a while was just doing career profiles. Because, you know, if you're intelligent and you enjoy science, then it's like the next line is for you to go do medicine and become a doctor, right? Whereas it's an array of different careers available. And a lot of the time it's because people aren't really familiar with them. So it's when they fail to get into medicine, then they go do some out of the allied health sciences, right? But, you know, there's this an array, and we thought, well, you can use social media to inform people about a little bit about these careers. And then they can then go look it up a little bit more and maybe get interested. And that's also science communication, right? You're taking these scientific careers and sharing it with people about what it looks like to work in those fields and informing them. Yeah. So as I'm getting towards, you know, the other questions about benefits, just saying that when we started out, it was just a website. We started out with just a website where we were updating science news and writing occasional original blog pieces, right? And then, of course, now, fast forward 5-7 years, we're at a point where we are working with the national museums to host exhibitions, okay? There's been a lot has changed over the years, and there's been a lot of growth. But remember what I said, there's been 5 main people and just an array of volunteers that have really run everything we've done over the years. So now let's get to the part where it really should interest you. Why you should get into science communication as a student. Why now? If you are a student, is this the best time or not? What are the benefits? If you are into students, still, why should I get into it? So I'm going to break down the benefits for you into 2. The personal benefits first, because, you know, how are you going to help someone if you can't keep, you know, body and soul together, right? So the personal benefits first, and then the more community and shared benefits, or even national benefits, global benefits for humanity. But we'll do personal first. Okay, so let's look at that. First one, you get to meet people, okay? Because it's a unique thing you're doing, communicating science, there is a fair amount of interest for it, and there's a fair amount of room to be able to share your ideas with people. So I mentioned the British Council Award that myself and the team picked up in 2018. Been to a number of events and conferences where I managed to engage with some politicians. So then he was a deputy minister. Of course, now he's the current minister for education. And then, of course, the chairman general himself during one of our media campaigns where we went around various radio stations. Okay. Joining networks and communities is another personal benefit. When Cyril was introducing me, mentioned, you know, Ghana Science Association, Ghana Young Academy, International Brain Research Organization, various groups and societies where there is value in people who are willing and able to take science outside of academic institutions to people. And of course, being able to get into those spaces is always a welcome place to be. Then you get to build your own capacity, okay? Now, this picture here is a picture of one of our very early on volunteers that we had that stayed with us. And interestingly, she was a student at GIJ. So wasn't a pure scientist, right? But enjoyed the idea of communicating science and just being a part of that. And that was her interviewing the then Australian ambassador to Ghana. Now, sometimes I look at this picture and I just think back and to myself that how many undergraduate students can boast that they did an interview with an ambassador, right? You know, and if it wasn't for the science communication work you were involved in, that opportunity wouldn't have come up. So you get to build your own capacity, right? You try out a few things yourself. Afro Science Network, you can try out writing, and by the time you come out of uni, you'll be a much better writer, for example. If you decided to pursue your studies, you'd have better writing skills that you can then sort of develop and go on with. There's also the idea of empowering others, right? Now we come into the shared benefits, because if you think about some of the activities that we've done in schools, for example, these students will get to engage with some type of science that they normally wouldn't have. And that in itself can perk up their interest and want them to engage in more science, okay? So I mentioned the story of Mina. She's now at Kansas State University. We had another volunteer that passed through, Harry. Then he was now just going into uni. Now he has his master's and he's working at one of the few sort of like indigenous biotech companies in Ghana. And taking part in science communication is a key part of their story. If you ever engage with any of them, they'll tell you, having those opportunities and sharing their knowledge with others is really key to who they currently are. Then you can give a voice to science, okay? A lot of us have private conversations and it'll be like, oh, you never hear anything sensible on the radio waves. You never hear anything science on the media waves. Just shared the story of Samojan's book going for 100,000 CDs. It was the second copy that was sold, actually. I think, was it the Spice or someone who bought it for that amount? But that was the second copy. I wonder how much the first copy went for them. But hey, by doing science communication, you give a voice to science. If you say TikTok has no sensible videos on there, then make sensible videos and put it on, right? If you say Instagram, well, what's the science content on Instagram? Why are you not putting it on? So you can engage in this and give science a voice, okay? Then there's a slew of other benefits, all right? By talking to people about the sciences, let's say COVID, you can help address urgent issues. So COVID, global warming, those sort of things. It makes science transparent. A lot of people who are outside of the scientific community don't really understand how the scientific method, for example, works. How real postgraduates, 5 years PhD. Not everybody can do that. Not everybody needs to do that. So we can go do all those years of work and then pick out what is important and matters to people, and then educate them as and when they need be. Even as educating the public, also then educating decision makers, right? I think Emmanuel shared some of this as well. I shared already inspiring the next generation in terms of engaging with students, and then even local communities, getting them to sort of act if they really understand how their actions have knock-on effects, which could be positive or negative, right? Okay. So now we're going to spend a bit of time on the slide, which is about how you can now get started. I've told you about benefits, meeting people, getting into networks, of course, giving a voice to science, all of that. But how can you get started? We'll start with the simple ones. Social media. We all have social media pages these days, and it's very easy to then tell science stories through that. It can be something as simple as doing a daily science fact. I have a colleague who does that. Every week he picks a theme, planets, plants, animals, diseases, anything, cancer, malaria, traffic, engines, whatever the light, whatever the theme is. Every week he picks a theme, and then every day shares an interesting fact about that. So the speed of light, the properties of light, things like that. And you can see how that can be very easy social media content. He sends it as a WhatsApp message around to various platforms, but you could do videos about that. You could do Instagram posts about that, right? You could then go ahead and do even experiments around it, okay? Blogging is the next one, where you just writing about some content in a very informal manner. So not the pure academic essays and things you have to write, but just, informing people in a very informal way. And if you wanted to think of subjects or things to blog on, it could be something as easy as taking your textbook, right? And for each chapter in your textbook, whatever is in there, think about how that could be contracted into like 500 words, right? And there'll be a lot of pieces in there, okay? Another thing would just be to take any popular news that's currently ongoing and then sharing your thoughts on it from a scientific perspective, okay? So if we take the example that we've used already today, 100,000 CDs paid for Asamoah's book, but then an academics book, way less than 1,500 was paid for it. Well, can we address that from a scientific perspective? Is there some behavioral science behind that? Are there some marketing approaches that was used in one that wasn't used in the other, in which case one gave better benefits than the other? I mean, this is already a research topic that someone could look into, right? But it's something you could then write about. Okay, third approach, outreach. What I mean by this is going into places that normally don't have the level of science you are taking. So going into schools, for example. So what we did at the primary school, at the junior high schools, those are sort of like outreach activities. What we did at the Spentex Mall, at Crown Mall, those are also outreach activities. Basically, taking your science and going out with it, right? Volunteering, that's another way you can start. I told you, we had 5 core team people and just 4 volunteers that came and went. And each of them picked up a certain skill. I'll give you an example. We went in Cape Coast, right? We went at UCC, so University of Cape Coast, and we did an activity there. It was a day's activity where we had senior high school students come in and then just come in, engage with neuroscience, right? So the physiology of it. And they came, they spoke to some professionals, they did some experiments. They had a good day. It was great. And we had teaching assistants and master students volunteering on that day. Basically, they ran the whole show. They did all the arrangements before the event. They helped make sure the event was smooth. And then they engaged with the students even during the break and so on. Now, fast forward about a year later, one of these students reaches out to me. Why does he reach out to me? Because he's applying for a postgraduate degree in the United States. And of the references that he needs to supply, one needs to be a non-academic reference. You see where I'm going with this? Through that volunteering, right? Of course, he enjoyed it, or science communication. He did all that. But that later on gave him something to talk about when he needed to apply for postgraduate study, okay? So this is it ends up being twofold. You're not only doing it for the love of it, but able to show that I love science so much that I'm willing to go out there and talk to people about it, even if nobody pays me. All right, so volunteering. Then, of course, interning, finding places that you can intern. So since if you, depend on where you are, right, you know that there are a number of research centers of excellence across the country. So in Accra, at Legon, we have the West African Cell Center for Biology and Infectious Pathogens. We have one around crop science. And in KNUST, there are a number of research centers around that funded by the German Institute also. Then you can just talk about even hospitals and places, or even pharmaceutical companies. Those places normally don't think about science communication, right? But what if you want to spend some time there? You spend 2 weeks there, you spend a month there, you spend 2 months there, and say, hey, give me your social media page, right? Let me put your science information out there. Or let me help you develop very simple communication strategies. it shouldn't harm to do, right? Even if they don't want you to officially do it at Afro Science Network. Come to GH Scientific. We'll take you on as an intern, right? Practice you're communicating on someone else's ticket, right? So you're not starting anything from scratch. You're jumping onto someone's ship and building some experience and trying out some things, get some confidence, learn some things, and then you can step out of that ship and go try your own thing. And then lastly, I would say another way for it to start is just networking. Being in this event and here your societies, there are a lot of student societies, right? For the various subjects, I believe, whether you're doing chemistry or you're doing physics or engineering, you all have these student bodies. Why not get together and see what you can do? Have a brainstorming session, get a couple of people together and say, hey, let's find out, my JHS I went to, I think we can go and help them out during revision, right? Or take one of the Saturdays and go to them, or talk to the teacher and say one of their Friday afternoons. You just go there, right? So if you get together with like-minded people, it'll give you the opportunity to brainstorm a bit about some of these ideas. Okay, now we get into the interesting part, which is career options. So I picked this up from, unfortunately, this is not Ghana, and this wasn't Africa either. It was a university somewhere in the West. But it gives you an idea of where science communication alone can take you. I'm not talking about your main science, right? So if you're an engineering student, you're an engineering student first, and you are a communicator second, right? Where can the communication alone take you? So non-profit organizations, sort of like what we do at GH Scientific, we need science communicators. Science centers, we have the Museum of Science and Technology, okay? Or if we take even the zoo, right? I know you're thinking why would they need a communicator? But how can they also drive people to their premises? If you have a look at some of the American zoos, for example, their online pages allow you to sort of follow some of the animals in the zoo, like what it's doing today, when this one is pregnant, when this one is due to deliver, and just things like that. But all of that builds stories, and people love stories, right? So about that. Then, of course, the government and the public sector, helping them just understand the research that's coming out. All the universities put out regular yearly reports about their key research findings. Someone who can take that, work with it, and make it simple for public sector workers and politicians to understand the implications. That's a career avenue. And you can see how that could grow in Ghana. It may not be a big thing in Ghana now, but it's something that based on how democracy is changing and people are asking more questions, you can see how that can grow. Educational and research institutes. So after 3 years, many research centers have someone who's a public engagement officer that really looks for opportunities to get the researchers to go and share their science. A lot of research centers in Ghana don't have it, but over the last 4 years, I've seen at least 2 of these centers that have such a job position, right? So it's something that is growing. It's something like if there are skilled people available, it could happen. It was mentioned earlier that a lot of research funds now are looking right? So you must show a certain level of ability, a certain level of experience, and you can get paid to produce weekly articles or whenever you can be bothered with this one. Which is why opportunities like writing for Afro Science Network is great, because you come and use Afro Science Network to sharpen your skills, and then you become expensive. and then don't forget your roots when you become an expensive science writer. But definitely, science writing is one of probably the lowest level to be able to get into the field. Okay. Now, I have said we're going to talk about money. Okay, so we're going to talk about money. We've been doing this at GA Scientific since 2015, and that's why I want to share with you. Okay, so on the left-hand side is our income statement since 2015. That's how much money has come in to the organization and how much has been spent. Now, this information is available online. If you go and look for any of our the recent reports we put out.